Aron Ralston was born on October 27, 1975, in Marion, Ohio. From the time he was a kid, he was never the type to sit still. At just 12 years old, he was already exploring the outdoors, skiing down snowy slopes, and hiking through wild trails. As he grew older, his love for adventure only got stronger. He learned rafting, hiking, mountain climbing, anything that pushed him to his limits. Soon, the outdoors wasn't just a hobby for him, it was his life. Aron eventually made a decision most people would never dare to make. He left his safe 9-to-5 job to dedicate himself completely to adventure. He moved to Aspen, Colorado, a small mountain town surrounded by rugged peaks and breathtaking landscapes. For someone like Aron, it was paradise. But Aron wasn't just climbing for fun. He had personal missions dreams so big they would take years to complete. He wanted to climb every one of Colorado's 59 peaks that stood over 14,000 feet high. Not just that, he wanted to do it in the winter, something almost no one had achieved. And on top of that, he planned to climb the highest point in every U.S. state by the end of 2002. He had already conquered 36 of the Colorado peaks in winter. Aron was fearless. In fact, some friends thought he took too many risks. On one trip, he even had a close brush with death. Because of his reputation for danger, some friends refused to join him on certain adventures. And that's exactly what happened in April 2003. He had planned a hiking trip with friends, but just days before they were supposed to leave, they all backed out. At first, Aron didn't plan to go alone, but with unexpected free time, he decided he wouldn't waste the opportunity. He packed his gear and headed for Utah. At that point, he didn't even know exactly where in Utah he would go. Usually, when traveling solo, he would tell his roommates exactly where he'd be. But this time, because he hadn't decided, he simply told them he was heading to Utah. On the drive, he finally chose his destination Canyonlands National Park. His plan was to spend the next 5 days exploring remote slot canyons. Slot canyons are deep, narrow passages carved by water over millions of years. They can be beautiful, but also deadly. On Saturday, April 26, 2003, around 9 in the morning, Aron arrived at the park. He parked his truck 15 miles from Blue John Canyon, took out his bike, and rode toward the entrance. In his backpack, he only had supplies for a single day to burritos, 4 liters of water, and some climbing gear. He left his bike at the canyon's edge and started hiking. By 2:30 in the afternoon, Aron was 7 miles deep into the canyon. The walls were narrowing as he moved forward, and huge boulders were wedged between them high above. Then he came to a rock the size of a bus tire, stuck between the canyon walls. His plan was simple: hang from it, drop to the floor, and keep going. But as soon as he grabbed the rock to lower himself, it shifted. He heard it move. Before he could react, it broke loose and fell straight down, smashing his right arm against the canyon wall. The pain was instant and overwhelming. He screamed for help, his voice echoing off the stone. But in this remote place, no one could hear him. At first, panic took over. He gulped down a large portion of his water without thinking, then froze as reality set in. He might be here for a long time. He forced himself to save every last drop. He checked his Gira camera, ropes, a headlamp, batteries, and a multi-tool with a small, dull knife. He had no phone. He started thinking of ways to get free. Maybe he could chip away at the rock. Maybe he could build a pulley system to lift it. Or he could cut off his arm. That last thought was so horrifying, he pushed it away instantly. He tried chipping at the rock with his knife. Hours passed, the sun went down, night came, and he made almost no progress. The next day, he built a pulley system with his rope, hoping to lift the boulder even a little. But with only one arm, he couldn't create enough force. He went back to breaking the rock, but nothing worked. After 24 hours trapped, he picked up his camera and recorded a message. He stated his name, the time, the location, and then spoke directly to his family, saying goodbye with tears in his eyes. He showed them his crushed arm and explained the failed attempts to free himself. The hours turned into days. His arm was going numb and turning blue. His water was almost gone. By the third day, he was collecting his urine in a small bag tied to his waist so he could drink it. He recorded more farewell messages, each one more emotional than the last, believing his death was only hours away. By the morning of May 1st, he had been trapped for 120 hours, 5 full days. He had been screaming for help for 3 days straight, but the canyon walls trapped his voice. Even if it escaped, this park was so huge and empty, no one would hear it. That morning, Aron drifted into a half-sleep. In a dream, he saw a small boy running toward him. Aron knew instantly it was his future son, even though he had no children at the time. In the dream, he reached out to pick him up and saw that his right arm was missing. When he awoke, he was convinced it was a sign. The vision filled him with a sudden, fierce will to live. By now, his arm was so badly decayed that cutting through the flesh was easier, but the bone was still solid. Then he realized he didn't need to cut the bone, he could break it. His arm was trapped in such a way that he could use his body weight to twist it. He forced himself into position and pushed with all his strength. With a sickening crack, the bones snapped. Then, using the dull knife, he cut through the remaining flesh and tendons until he was free. But the nightmare wasn't over. Weak, bleeding and dizzy, he still had to climb out of the canyon and hike miles to his truck. Somehow, he made it out and stumbled onto a family hiking nearby. They gave him water and food and called for help. For hours after freeing himself, a rescue helicopter finally arrived. Aron had lost 40 pounds and a quarter of his blood, but he was alive. 6 months later, he returned to Blue John Canyon with a TV crew to share his story. He wrote a book, Between a Rock and a Hard Place, which became a bestseller. In 2010, his story was turned into the film 127 Hours, and the scene of him cutting off his arm was so intense that some people fainted in the theater. In 2020, Aron's first son was born, the same child he believes he saw in that dream. He went on to complete his goal of climbing all 59 of Colorado's highest peaks in winter, becoming the first person to do it alone. Today, Aron still climbs with a prosthetic arm and works as a motivational speaker, telling audiences, "I lost my hand, but I got my life back."